Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Little Rock, where love is our teaching and service is our prayer. I'm Nell Matthews, and I serve on some committees and teams here, and I sing with the choir. If you're a newcomer, we're glad to have you. You have chosen to join us this Sunday for worship, and while you're here, please stop by the guest table and fill out a guest card and pick up some information about our church. You give us your email, and you'll be able to get information about what's going on. I now invite Cater Reynolds to come forward to light the chalice and lead us in our order of our affirmation of covenant, which is printed in your order of service.
I light this chalice with these words. Open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Open our minds to learn what is true. Open our hearts to love one another. Please join me in the affirmation of covenant, which is printed in your little order of service.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Garrett Kaiser has a wry and somewhat old-fashioned way of expressing his thoughts. When he writes about what it means to be human or of a fully formed adult who could qualify as human, or when he muses about sapience, that is, our ability to apply our knowledge, experience, and common sense with great wisdom and sound judgment, or when he talks about our ability to recognize and value our interdependence, I might, instead of framing all of that as human or not, rather frame it as aspects of lifespan learning and spiritual growth. His concern in this passage, our relationship to helping or accepting help, is just one aspect of that broad, deep, and complex process. We encounter moments of spiritual insight and growth at many times and many kinds of places in our lives, sometimes unexpected ones. Our Covenant Group program is meant to deepen and broaden personal spiritual growth intentionally and in community with others. A group usually consists of 8 to 10 members who meet at each other's homes, usually once every 2 weeks. Each meeting is focused on a spiritual or a religious topic. The goals are to listen and be listened to in a safe space, to learn about the mysteries of our world and of our spiritual paths, to build new and deeper personal connections, serve our community and the needs of one another, and maintain personal connections and a caring community. Group members are expected to commit to regular meeting times and to practice deep listening, focusing intently on what another person is saying without interruption or simultaneously formulating a response. This practice gives each group member an opportunity to speak about what is on their heart and has perhaps gone unspoken or even unformulated in their thoughts until they take this opportunity to be heard. These regular gatherings follow a pattern with opening words for settling in, personal check-ins, deep listening on the topic that the group has chosen, a brief likes and wishes evaluation of that session's experience, asking how well did we hold this space for each other, and closing words for going forth. Groups are encouraged to start and end on time. So what's the Covenant Group experience like? We have 3 members here, Jane Harper, Jean Miley, and Amber Triplett, who are prepared to talk about what has been meaningful in it for them. Now I call Jane to come up first. And everybody send lots of supportive juju to Jane this morning. She's been dealing with a cough.
Hi, I'll try not to send an amplified cough through the room. I've been a member here for about a year, and I began attending in the spring of 2024, shortly after I moved to Little Rock from Washington State. And I'd been involved in a wonderful UU church there, so I knew I wanted to find a community here. And we actually had a similar program. We called it Small Group Ministry. I enjoyed it a lot, so I was very happy to see in the bulletin that was offered here. The other members in my group are all longtime church members, and they've also been together in this group for a long time. And that was a little intimidating, but everyone has been welcoming and friendly and supportive. And I also got to learn a little bit about the church due to their experiences. As was mentioned, each meeting discussion centers on a single topic, such as joy, trust, belonging, and they're interesting, thought-provoking, often will lead to unexpected ideas and insights. The agenda, it's nice to have that kind of ritualistic feel as you settle in. And I like that the discussion is facilitated. Everybody gets their chance to speak, but there's still a sense of flexibility and natural conversation, so you don't feel like you're in a class. Hearing those experiences, perspectives, and thoughts from each other is very interesting, mind-opening. And with each discussion, you get to feel like you know the other members of the group a little more. And there's an experience in sharing private thoughts with each other that really builds a connection and an empathy. And also, as a person from the suburban Pacific Northwest, I really have been very appreciative of hearing stories from a Southern perspective and kind of fascinated by some of that. And then, of course, you also learn about yourself when you're answering the questions and doing the prerequisite readings and the works. I'll just share a little bit about what I'd say was the most memorable meeting for me, and it was one in which we opted not to do the pre-planned topic. It was November of 2024, very shortly after the presidential election. No one in our group was happy with the results of the election. It was shock and horror. But the depth and breadth of the knowledge was amazing to me. The insights into history, economics, politics, societal and cultural issues that kind of got us to that point. It led to a great discussion about what we could do for improvement, and it ended up being very comforting, very uplifting at a time when I think we all needed that a lot. I still reflect on some of the comments that I heard during that meeting. And I guess that's about it. I would just strongly encourage anyone interested, whether they're new or have been here for a long time, to look at the Covenant group and consider joining one, because it's been a very nice part of my experience here.
I have to say that my first task was successful. I didn't step on anybody's toes. I'm new to Covenant groups. I haven't been in for a whole year yet. I found myself thinking that Covenant groups are not an entity of themselves, but an extension of the church whole, usually led by lay people like Sue McDonald and others. The groups are unique because they have a universal code. What's said in the Covenant group stays in the Covenant group. That way, it allows people to feel free to say what's on their mind and in their hearts. And we've had some interesting discussions. I wondered how I got here, so that's kind of where my talk is going to go. My wife and I always felt we were spiritual people. We went to Christian churches for over 25 years. She playing the organ, doing work in committees, me singing in the choir, on the boards, and lay minister at one point in time. After she passed, I began to question my spiritual health. I really felt ill at ease with myself, and I didn't have an idea of what to do. I was uncertain what to expect after 30 years of no church home. what did spirituality mean? What better place to find it than in this church and in a covenant group? I had a conversation with a person one time who said something about his family member, sister, who had very serious grave injury, was not expected to live. Family was all gathered in the hospital room. He left the room because he had to get out. He heard a voice, thought it was God, that said, "Your sister's going to be fine." She was and still is. Now that would be a spiritual experience. My sister tells me that my dad, who was 91 years old, went into a near-death experience. When he came out, he said he had seen Jesus. That also would be a spiritual experience. I seriously doubt that I'll have an experience like that. So that was where my mind was when I came to this church. Ralph Paul has a way in his sermons of making my brain go on fire. After one of his services about the world religions, I asked him if he had a book about it. He said, yes, he'd be glad to lend it to me, which he did. On the way to the office, I told him about a conversation I had with a person about our church and explained what we believed in. They asked, well, what about hell? What about heaven? What about original sin? I said, we don't have the notion to those things. His reply was, why have a church? Ralph Paul's reply was, what kind of person do you want to be? That just took my brain and put it on overdrive. It was an appropriate response. My spiritual growth has got to come from within me, not from without. The group I'm in is a very welcoming, loving, kind group, very diverse. We have younger folks and people that are slightly outside of middle age. No inference there. We have informal conversations, and we also have structured work. I sometimes think that the informal conversations can have an effect almost as much as the structured. We were talking about things, and I said, well, you know, I don't like singing Christmas carols anymore because I just don't believe that stuff anymore. Somebody, our leader, Sue, said, I just enjoy the music. Maybe I'm being a little bit too easy to reject all the things I used to believe. Maybe that's one small spiritual growth. The other thing about meeting in covenant groups is we are folks of like minds. We don't agree on everything, but we all agree every person has value, and we love you the way you are, spiritually and otherwise. Covenant groups are safe places where you can let your guard down and think about the trivial and about the heady. All things stay within the group. The covenant groups also help the congregation as a whole, because as we grow, the congregation grows. So it works both ways. We grow coming here, and we grow going to the covenant groups. I've had another small experience I'd like to relate to you. I was at the grocery store loading the items in my cart, which you call a buggy. I never figured that one out. There were items on the shelf. I took all 3 items that were left. And a small voice asked it beside me, said, what happens if somebody comes in and needs that and there's none here? So I put one back. It's never happened to me before. I never even thought about it. Now, unless you think I'm getting sanctimonious about this, I'll tell you what happened on the way home. I was in a line at the traffic light, several cars in front of me, several cars behind. I pulled right up behind the car in front of me, which we all do, cutting a car off that wanted to come in onto the road. I looked over and thought to myself, why didn't I let them out? It would have taken 10 seconds of my time at most. So I guess I have to say that I'm a work in progress. What a place to work on yourself than here in this congregation and in a covenant group. Thank you.
Oh, there's no step. I get to be extra short today. Joining a new community can be difficult, as we all know, whether it's the first day at a new school or job, being someone's +1 at a party, or joining a new church. Finding entree into the most gracious of groups can be a challenge. After all, how does one go from being an eager bystander to a meaningful member of the most beloved community? When my daughter was in cloth diapers, that long ago, I braved a service here, knowing very little about this church. Unsure of what to expect, I dropped Kat in the nursery, pretended to read and reread the order of service, and waited nervously for showtime. What if I'd taken someone's seat? What if no one talked to me? What if someone talked to me? What if they only glanced over their shoulder at me before lowering their voices to chat to a partner? What if they realized that I've never read the whole Bible, been baptized, and only ever memorized Bible verses on Sunday school for the Jolly Ranchers they promised in return? But then a kind and gentle woman introduced herself and asked if she could sit next to me. Of course, I gratefully accepted and made small talk. I accepted Selma's help in finding the appropriate hymnal for songs I'd never heard. And afterward, I thanked her, grabbed Kat from the nursery, and followed the congregants into the much heralded coffee hour. There, Selma acted as my intermediate, introducing me to Jerry and so many other smiling faces that I promptly forgot. At the first chance, I thanked them and made a dash for the car. Like so many of you, I am estranged from my family and less connected to my world than I would like to be. Joining UUCLR seemed like a good idea at the time, but how does one make the jump from sitting through service and standing on the sideline of coffee hour to being a part of this congregation? Especially when I couldn't remember people's names. It really wasn't as simple as all that. I don't even drink coffee, y'all. I don't want to remember if it was mentioned in a bulletin or an announcement at service, but the idea of covenant groups eventually came to my attention just as I was beginning to doubt my place here. I figured, hey, what do I have to lose? Me with a small group of strangers to discuss whatever y'all discuss and do whatever you all do? It seems a little bit intimidating, but could I really say I had given it a shot if I did not try? I filled out the form and crossed my fingers. I cannot say I was surprised to find out that I had been assigned to a group headed by none other than the always inspirational Selma and Jerry. But I was absolutely pleased. As the designated evening grew nearer, I felt more nervous and more anxious. What if they didn't like me? What if I didn't like them? I hadn't made any real connections at this church thus far. What if this was just more of the same? Also, I was lucky to be in our only Zoom covenant group. And what could be worse than sitting at a Zoom meeting with strangers, staring like a deer in the headlights in a lonely little box on the screen among so many other boxes? Or maybe even worse, maybe little boxes of people that I had been introduced to, but had forgotten. Never one to chicken out, I firmly fixed my smile to my face and logged on to the great unknown. Now, y'all, I love my covenant group. Through good times and bad, Selma, Jerry, Shana, Marianne, Dave, Marcy, Allison, and I have discussed everything under the sun. I've celebrated marriages, admired pictures of grandbabies and great-grandbabies. I've offered rides to doctor's appointments or choir practice, and I gratefully accepted their help when my family and I needed it the most. These are the people I didn't know I was missing in my life. They have made me more aware of the opportunities to socialize here at church, of the support that is available. They have listened when I needed a listener. They have provided hope when things felt pretty dark. And all without me needing to hire a babysitter. It's pretty awesome. But perhaps the most important part of it all is that they've given me the courage to introduce myself and reach out to each new member in hopes that I can be that person's entree from the sidelines to the center of our beloved community.
I'm sure you heard in those testimonies a variety of ways that Covenant Group experience can offer support and space for spiritual growth. One other way Covenant Groups can help is with your health. In her book called The Art and Science of Connection, social scientist Cassie Killam asks, why do we invest in physical health but not social health? Research has shown that social interaction has significant effects on our health. She offers a guideline, or she says you could think of it as a challenge. She calls this 5-3-1. Her idea is that we should aim to connect with 5 different people each week, to cultivate at least 3 close relationships, and to spend 1 hour a day total just connecting. That's like a benchmark if you're not sure where to start, she says, adding that it's really important to recognize that with connection, quality is more important than quantity, especially for introverts. Well, if you're in a Covenant group about every other week, you've got your 5 and your 1 all taken care of, and you're steadily working on your 3 in that group. So a Covenant group is like a vitamin pill helping you get your minimum requirements of social health. If we've gotten you interested, there's information, or there was supposed to be information in your order of service. If there isn't, there should be the application forms in the foyer, or maybe by the name tags. I've forgotten where we put them. But they're available. Just ask one of us who are leading the service this morning, or go snoop around. And if you find that form, you can apply, and you apply not to see if you qualify as a human, but rather to help us smooth the way for you by either connecting you to an existing Covenant group or including you in a new one that we might form if we have enough people to form a new one. We believe that Covenant groups not only help with their members' spiritual health and growth, but also help nurture our congregation's culture of welcome, care, connection, and mutual support for spiritual growth. And we encourage you to see what it's like to be part of a Covenant group and to weigh whether it's a good fit for your spiritual journey. May we each have the support and encouragement we need for our social and spiritual well-being. Amen.
I invite Cater to come back and extinguish our chalice, and please join in saying the closing words. Go out
into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings, and may you focus evermore on love.
Amen.